So welcome for the part three of our discussion. So last time we discussed about the OOP or the object, what is object in OOP, and also what is a class in OOP. So this time we're going to proceed on the next topic. Okay, so we are going to discuss one of the OOP concept, which is the encapsulation. So encapsulation in Java. So we have here an example. If you are going to research what is encapsulation, probably if you are going to click in the images, it will pop up those images that looks like a capsule. Okay, so in a capsule, so that is a capsule encapsulation. So that is the example capsule. It because in a capsule the capsule itself is the class in programming. So inside of a capsule or um the one that it's look like a white dots, okay, so or like a pulveron. So that is the variables of the variables in programming. And also at the top of that capsule is the methods. Okay, so another thing when we talk about the encapsulation, that is something creating or implementing the abstraction. So which is when we talk about the abstraction, that is hiding the information. So that means in encapsulation, we are hiding something in our program. Okay, so that is why the class itself is the capsule, kasi inside of that is the variable that we are declaring to hide something, okay, in a program. Okay, so what is encapsulation? It is the process of combining data and actions into a single item. So it is groups instance variables and methods into a class. So it hides implementation details. Okay, that is the main function of the encapsulation. So to create the function of encapsulation, declare the variables of a class as private. Okay, so if you remember in our previous part or lesson, we discussed about the access modifier. Okay, so provide public setter and getter methods to modify and view the variables values. Okay, so that means we're going to use the set and then the get keyword. So information hiding, a programming mechanism restricting access to some of the object's components. So details of a program's codes are hidden, especially part that the other programmers or users need to know and or use. Okay, so it allows a more abstract view of a method and classes being used in a program, because not everything in a program class it will be shown or can be accessed as a public. That is why we studied about the access modifier. We have the private, protected, and then the public. So in a program, we are encouraged also to hide some information that only the programmer can access the function or the particular method. Okay, next is the constructor. So a constructor is a special method used to create and initialize objects. Okay, uses the new keyword for calling its method, must have the same as the class to which it belongs. So the constructor itself, that is for creating and the initialization of the object. So another meaning for the constructor. So we have the static variables that are shared by all objects of their classes, can be given the public or private modifiers. So when we talk about the static method, a method that has no relation to any object. So written in the static keyword, on the heading of the method definition. So if you're going to review the previous program or codes, we already identified the public, the private, and then the static. We already use the static keyword. So you are going to analyze that particular program so that you can identify the static variables and then the static method. Okay, so for the example again, so we have here the static variables. Okay, so if you're going to create an object, this is your main class. That is the only codes for the main class. One line only. Okay, the font, open close parentheses, and then inside of this method name, this is your method name actually. So inside of this is the parameters. Okay, so semicolon, of course, to end the statement. So for the static variables, of course, again, we are going to use the static. Okay, so static int a equals 11. So our variables a value 11, and of course the b system that out a plus b plus c. So static system that out that print ln. This is an example of static variables and methods. So b equals a plus 12. So to identify the output class, I want you to write these codes in your program. So create another program and copy these codes. So no more missing codes. Okay, so just follow the codes class to have the output. Okay, so for the constructor, again, for the continuation, we have the math class. So the math class, predefined class that provides a number of standard mathematical methods. So in your computer programming one, we already discussed the mathematical operation. So the same with the real math that we are talking. Okay, the function or the process that the math has is, for example, the addition, the subtraction, yun, automatically provided by Java, therefore not needing an important statement. Okay, that means that is already in Java programming, so no need for any other statement to identify or to get the answer. So all methods are static. You do not need an object for a class. So naka-static siya, so you really don't need to create or access an object. Okay, so for example, this is the math class. Okay, so we're going to find absolute value. If you remember in your mathematics or maybe in your senior high math subject, meron doon class na absolute or the absolute value. So for example, integer a equals -8. For the double d, that is -100, and then the float f equals -90. So system that out that print ln mat that abs. Okay, so since that is for the absolute, that is abs. Okay, and then you have to call also the mat, so you really don't need to get or write the formula to get the absolute value of the particular integer double float values. Okay, so to run this program or to identify the output, please copy these codes and then find what is really absolute value is. Okay, so another constructor in codes. So we discuss about the constructor, the yung meaning kanina. So this is the example on how the constructor is going to be in your program. Okay, so for example, we have this kind of codes. Okay, so package, of course, that is and according to your program. So meron na yun siya sa package. You really don't need to write a package. Public class lab01 underscore object. So for our object, we have the name, color, and then the weight. Okay, so to create a constructor or to make a constructor, you have to access the object or you have to call your object name. So which is lab01 underscore object, and then string A, string B, int C. So that means since that is a weight, so that is particularly, or in a real scenario, when we talk about the weight, that is a number. Okay, so that is why we are using the int for our C value. Okay, so this is inside of the close open parenthesis. So this is our parameters. So for the constructor naman, we have this one. So this that name equals A. So we are using the keyword this because we are getting plus the value of that particular data. Okay, so this that name, that color, that weight. Okay, we are going to base our variable here in according in our attributes. So if that is small letter name or small letter, so we have to use also small letter here in our constructor. So para to minimize errors also. So ito yun siya yung use ni constructor. The constructor is getting the value or the attributes in that particular object. So it is that's transaction of calling the value of that particular object. So we are using the this keyword to constructor. Okay, so void bounds, since bounds is the behavior of the ball or our object. So system that out that println this is for the plus this that name. Okay, so that means we are getting the data of the name of that object. Okay, so and then this is the function. So another one for the constructor. So we have the default constructor and then the parameterized constructor. Again, when we talk about the parameterized or the parameters class is inside of the close open parentheses after the method name. Okay, so for the default constructor, it is called when it does not have any parameter or no value in that particular open close parentheses. But when we talk about the parameterized constructor, it has specific numbers of parameters. Okay, so that means we have the value in that particular parameters. Okay, so another example of a constructor with parameters and without the parameters. So with parameters, we have here the object cut. So for the data, we have the name and then the color. Okay, so string name, string color. So this that name equals name, this that color equals color. So without the parameters, so public cat, open close. Okay, so this that name equals a name, and then this that color equals gray. If you are going to notice, we identify the parameters inside of the open close parameter. Again, si parameters class that is after the method let's say the method name or in that particular object. Okay, so this is the without the parameters, since there is no value here. Okay, so we identify that the value of the name is a name and then the color is gray. Okay, so that is for the example of without, and this is the example of with parameters. Okay, so for the default constructor, it will be invoked at the time of object creation. So during the creation of the particular object. Okay, so for this example, default constructor system that out animal is either a dog or a cat, since there is no particular object here. Okay, then so for the main class, we have the default constructor A equals new default constructor. So it will print out class the the function in the default constructor, which is animal is either a dog or a cat. Another one, default constructor, you are not creating any constructors. So So compiler provides you a default constructor since we are not going to identify, so the Java program will identify for you. So here 0 and null values are provided by default constructor. So this is just an example of the default constructor. So try to research default constructor in Java programming, a lot of the data type and also the value that the default constructor can give in Java programming. Okay, so try to run this program also, so you will identify the output. Okay, so for the parameterized constructor, you can copy this codes also and then try to run. So find the output also. So we have the int id name. So parameterized constructor, int num, and then the string n. So number and a name. Okay. So ano yung ma-display niya? So for the activity 03, complete the codes to have the output given. Okay, so this will be the output of this particular codes. So static example and public example. No need to add some lines in your codes. Just focus in this particular lines of codes and then try to get or identify the missing codes so that you will have this particular output. Okay, so this is the exact output that the given codes can provide. So make sure to identify. So to identify this one, please be guided in this line. Okay, no need to add some more lines. Okay, ito lang yun siya, class yung kulang na or ito lang yung mga kulang na codes na you are going to fill in to run the program. Okay, so I think you can really identify the missing codes so that you can have this output. So try to study also the given program codes class in that particular topic so that you can you can experience also what is really the topics really want you to know. Okay, so I hope that you understand about the encapsulation, the static variables, the public, and also the classes and the object. Okay, for the assignment, I want you to design a method and identify the function of each codes. So you have to create your own program. So design a method and then identify the function of each codes. So you really need to explain what your codes are or what are the functions. Okay, so that is for your assignment 01. So see you on the next part of our discussion.